Welcome to Skip the Queue, the podcast for people working in and working with visitor attractions. You join me today out and about yet again. This time I am in London at Olympia for the Museums and Heritage Show. Hotly anticipated event in everybody's diary. We all look forward to it. 2 days of talks and exhibitions and workshops, just a whole lot of networking and fun. And of course we've got the M&H awards as well. So in this episode I am going to be joined by a number of different people from across the sector. Museum and cultural institution professionals, we've got some consultants, we've got some suppliers to the industry, all pretty much giving us their take on what they've seen, what they're doing and what their thoughts are for the year ahead. So without further ado, let's meet our first guest.
Hi, Anna. Welcome to Skip the Queue. Thank you for giving us some of your time on what must be a massively busy day for you. I wonder if you could just tell the audience who you are, what you do, and a little bit about what Museums and Heritage is, because not everyone listening to the podcast comes from the museum sector.
Well, Andy, thanks. This is a great opportunity and always really lovely to see your happy, smiley face at the Museums and Heritage Show. So M&H, as we're often referred to as, stands for Museums and Heritage, and we're a small business that organises the principal trade exhibition for the Museums and Heritage sector. That could be broadened, I suppose, into the cultural sector. We also have the awards ceremony for the sector and an online magazine. So we are Museums and Heritage, but we're often referred to as M&H. And we've been around for a very long time, 30 plus years, I think.
Oh my word.
I know.
And what's your role within the organisation? Your badge says event director today. That's one of many hats, I'm sure.
It is one of many hats because we're a very small team. So I own and manage the events. If you like, M&H is my baby. I've been doing it for a very long time. I feel like I'm truly immersed in the world of museums and heritage and would like to think that as a result of that, I kind of understand and appreciate some of the issues and then bring everyone together to actually get in the same room and to talk them through at the show. So, yeah, that's what we're about, really, in a shorthand.
And obviously the show, we're in the middle of West London. It's a beautifully sunny day here at Olympia. The show is the culmination, I suppose, of 12 months of work. So what actually goes in? What does a normal day look like for you on any month other than May?
Yeah, well, it was funny, actually. Sometimes people, I think, well, what do you do for the rest of the year? Do you just turn up to London for a couple of days?
Just turn up.
But delivering an event like this, and also our award scheme, is literally a 365 days of the year job. So the moment we leave Olympia in London, we're already planning the next event. So it really is all encompassing. So I get involved in a lot. As I say, we're a small team, so I'm the person that tends to do most of the programming for the show. So we have 70 free talks. Everything at the show is free to attend. It's free to visit. So we have an extensive program of talks. We have about 170 exhibitors. So although I have a sales team for that, I'm managing them and looking after that and working with some of those exhibitors. And then I'm very much involved in our awards. So the Museums and Heritage Awards look to celebrate and reward the very best in our sector and shine the spotlight on that, not just in the UK, but around the world. So we have a judging panel and I coordinate that. So pretty much every decision, I mean, you look at the colour of the carpet, which incidentally is bright pink. You look at the colour of the carpet here, who made the decision what colour it would be in the aisles this year? It was me. So I do get heavily involved in all the nitty-gritty as well as the bigger strategic decisions.
Oh, fantastic. Here on the show floor today, it is really busy. There are an awful lot of people there. So this is all testament to everything that you've done to make this the success that it is. I'm sure that every exhibitor is going to walk away with maybe not a full order book, but definitely a fistful of business cards.
I think that's it. What we really want, and we sort of bill this event as the big catch-up, and we do that for a reason. And that is really to kind of give 2 days of the year, people put those in their diary. It's a space where people can come together. So, there'll be people here standing on stands who obviously and understandably want to promote their product or service and are looking to generate new business. And then our visitors are looking for those services and enjoying the talks, and everyone comes together. And it's an opportunity to learn and network and connect and to do business in the broadest possible sense, really.
No, I think that the line, the big catch-up, really sums the show up for me. I worked out on the way in this morning. It's the 15th time I've been to the show. It's one of my favourite in the year because it has a fantastic mix of the curatorial, the commercial, everything that goes into running a successful museum or heritage venue.
I mean, it's funny when people ask me to summarise. I mean, for a start, it's quite difficult. Really, it should be museums, galleries, heritage visitor attractions, culture. It is a very diverse sector. And if you think about everything that goes into making a museum or a gallery or a historic house function, operate, engage, it's as diverse as the organisational types are themselves. And we try and bring all of that together. So, whether you are the person that's responsible for generating income in your organisation, and perhaps that might be retail or it might be catering, it could be any stream of income generation. There's going to be content for you here, just as much as there's going to be content for you here if you are head of exhibitions or if you are perhaps wearing the marketing hat and actually your job is, communications or audience development. We try and represent the sector in its broadest scope. So that there is something for everyone, quite literally.
And that's apparent just from looking on the show floor. So with all of your experience in the museum sector, and I suppose you get to see quite an awful lot of new stuff, new products. So what are you anticipating happening in the next sort of 6 to 12 months in our sector?
Well, that's a big question because, going back to what we were just saying and the kind of different verticals, if you like, that sit within the sector. But I think the obvious one probably has to be AI and the influence of that. I'm not saying that that's going to change everything overnight. It won't. But you can see the ripples already, and you can see that reflected out here on the exhibition floor with exhibitors. And you can also see it in our programme. So this sort of AI is only, one aspect of, the bigger, wider digital story. But I just think it's probably more about the sector evolving than it is about, grand sweeping changes in any one direction. But the other thing to say, of course, is that as funding gets more, the economic landscape, is tough, undeniably so. So generating revenue and finding new ways to do that and prioritising it within your organisation, but not at the expense of everything else that's done. And it should never be at the expense of everything else that's done, and it's perfectly possible to do both. Nobody's suggesting that it's easy. Nothing's easy. No. But, it's possible. And I think the show here and also what we do online in terms of, news and features, all of that, and what other organisations are doing in this sector, of course, and the partners we work with. But I think just helping kind of bridge that gap, really, and to provide solutions and to provide inspiration. And actually, there's no need to reinvent the wheel constantly. But actually, I think it was somebody that works in the sector. I'm reluctant to name names, but there was somebody I remember once saying, well, stealing with glee is kind of, and I think actually, if you see somebody else is doing something great, and actually we see that in our awards, that's the whole point. Let's shine a spotlight on good work. Well, that might inspire someone else. It's not about ripping something off, and it's not absolute replication, but actually, scalable changes in your organisation that may have been inspired by somebody else's is only a good thing as well.
It's all that evolutionary process, isn't it?
Totally.
So a great experience. Thank you. On behalf of everybody that's come to the show today.
Well, thank you very much. I love doing it. I really genuinely do. And there is nothing like the buzz of a busy event.
Yeah, my name's John Horsfield. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Cinchio Solutions.
And what does Cinchio do?
We provide F&B technology, so kiosks, point of sale, payments, kitchen systems, inventory, self-checkout, to the museums, heritage, zoos, aquariums and hospitality industries.
Oh, fantastic. So I understand this is your first time here at the Museums and Heritage Show.
It is our first time. It's been an interesting learning curve.
Tell me more.
Well, our background is very much within the hospitality. We've been operating for about 22, 23 years within the sort of high street hospitality side of things. Some of our London-based listeners may have heard of Leon Restaurants or Coco de Mama.
Very much so, yeah.
We've been working with them for over 20 years. But we're looking at ways of bringing that high street technology into other industries and other verticals. And the museums and heritage is a vertical that we've identified as somewhere that could probably do with coming into the 21st century with some of the technology solutions available.
I hear what you're saying. So what do you think of the show? What are your first impressions? Give me your top 3 tips or learning points.
Firstly, this industry takes a long time to get to know people. It seems to be long lead times. That's the first learning that we've had. Our traditional industry in hospitality, people will buy. In this industry, it's going to take some time, and we're happy about that. We understand that. So for us, this is about learning about how the industry works. Everybody's really friendly.
We try. Yeah.
That's one of the first things that we've found out with this industry is everybody is really friendly, and that's quite nice. Even some of our competitors, we've been having nice conversations with people. Everybody is really lovely. The third point is the fact that I didn't know that there were so many niche markets. And I found out where my mother buys her scarves and Christmas presents from. So no, it's been really interesting seeing the different types of things that people are looking for. We've sort of noticed that it's really about preservation. That's one of the main areas. There's a lot of things about preservation. Another one is about the display, how things are being displayed, and lots of innovative ways of doing that. But also the bit that we're really interested in is the commercialisation. There's a real push within the industry to start to commercialise things and bring in more revenue from the same people.
Yeah. I mean, that's all about securing the destiny so that you're not reliant on funding from external parties or government and you taking that control. So what do you do at Cinchio that helps the museums
well,
do
first
that?
of all, I would say the efficiencies that we can bring with back office systems, integrations. We're very well aware of what we do. We're also aware of what we don't do. So, for example, we're not a ticketing provider. We're a specialist retail and F&B supplier. So it's about building those relationships and actually integrating. We've got a lot of integrations available, and we're very open to that. So that's the first thing. But one of the key things that we're trying to bring to this industry is the way that you can use technology to increase revenue. So the kiosks that we've got here, it's proven that you'll get a minimum average transaction value increase of 10 to 15%.
And what do you put that down to?
The ability to upsell.
Okay.
With kiosks, as long as if you put, for example, with a burger, if you just have a nice little button, say, would you like the bacon fries with that? It's an extra few pounds. Well, actually, if you've got an extra few pounds on every single transaction, that makes an incredible difference to the bottom line from the same number of customers. Some of our clients over in the USA have seen an ATV increase of up to 60% with the use of kiosks.
And that's just through selling additional fries?
Exactly. People will... I went to a talk many years ago when people started to adopt kiosks. And the traditional thing is the fact that people will order 2 Big Macs and a fries to a kiosk, but when you go face-to-face, they will not order 2 Big Macs and a fries.
So you're saying I'm a shy fatty, is basically
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, Andy. Absolutely not. So that's really what it's about. It's about using the sort of the high-street technology and applying that to a different industry and trying to bring everybody along with us.
And you need to listen to the Skip the Queue. It's the best podcast series ever. Yeah. It'll give you this industry.
Perfect. That was a lovely little soundbite. Dom,
it's
welcome.
The truth. It's the truth. I love Skip the Queue.
Welcome back to Skip the Queue. Paul, welcome for your first time. Let's just start with a quick introduction. Dom, tell everybody about yourself.
So I'm Dominic Jones. I'm the Chief Executive of the Mary Rose Trust. And I'm probably one of Skip the Queue's biggest fans. I love it.
And biggest stars.
Well, I don't know. At one point, I was number one.
And Paul, what about yourself? What's your role?
Well, I'm Paul Woolf. I've just joined the Mary Rose as a trustee. Dom's been kind of hunting me down politely for a little bit of time. When he found out that I left the King's Theatre, he was very kind and said, right, now you've got time on your hands, would you come over and help? So my role is to support Dom and to just help zhuzh things up a bit, which is kind of what I do. Okay. And just bring some new insights into the business and to develop it a bit and look at the brand, which is where my skills.
Paul is underselling himself. He is incredible. And the Mary Rose Trust is amazing. If you haven't visited, you should visit. We're in Portsmouth Historic Dockyard. But what's great about it is it's about attracting great people. I'm a trustee, so I'm a trustee for Good Whites. I'm a trustee for Pompey the Community. I know you're a trustee for Kids in Museums. I love your posts and the fact that you come visit us. But it's about getting the right team and the right people. And Paul has single-handedly made such a difference to performance art in the country, but also in Portsmouth. And before that, had a massive career in the entertainment. So we're getting a talent. It's like getting a Premiership player. And we got Paul Woolf. So I am delighted. And we brought him here to the Museum Heritage Show to say, this is our industry, because we want him to get sucked into it, because he is going to be incredible. You honestly, you'll have a whole episode on him one day.
And this is the place to come, isn't it? I mean, there is such a buzz about the place.
I've gone red. I've gone red, embarrassed.
So, have you seen some talks already? What's been impressive for you so far, Paul?
Well, we did, actually, the first talk we were listening to was all about touring and reducing your environmental impact on touring.
Oh, excellent.
Which is quite interesting. And what I said there was that, as time gone by, and we had this a little bit at the theatre, actually, that if you want to go for grant funding today, the first question on the grant funding form, almost the first question, after the company name and how much money you want, is environmental impact.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to tour, and we're looking now, one of the things that Dom and I have been talking about is, Mary Rose is brilliant, it's fantastic, it's great, it's in the dockyard in Portsmouth, and the and is New York, everywhere.
Let's take her on tour.
And why isn't it on tour, right? Now, I know there are issues around on tour. We've got the collections team going, don't touch. But nonetheless, it was interesting listening to that, because obviously you can't do that. You can't just put in a lorry and send it off. And so I thought that was quite interesting.
A museum and heritage is our favourite thing. One, it's free. Two, it's all the industry coming together. It's not about status. You can come here as a student or as a CEO, and you're all welcome. In fact, I introduced Kelly from Rubber Cheese, your company, into Andy Povey, and now you guys have a business together. And I introduced them here in this spot outside the men's toilets at Museum and Heritage. It's bringing the memories back.
Which is where we're standing. By the way, everybody, we're outside the toilets.
It's the networking, it's the talks, and we're about to see Bernard from Alva in a minute, who'll be brilliant.
Yes.
But all of these talks inspire you, and then the conversations, and just seeing you and Andy today, I'm so delighted. And Skip the Queue is going from strength to strength. I love the new format. I love how you're taking it on tour. You need to bring it to the Mary Rose next, right?
I think we might be coming sometime soon for a conference near you.
What, the Association of Independent Museums?
We might be doing an AIM conference with you.
Excellent.
Good.
Look, guys, it's been lovely to talk to you. Enjoy the rest of your day here at M&H. Stephen, welcome back to Skip the Queue.
Thank you very much.
For listeners, remind them what you do.
So I'm Stephen Spencer. My company is Stephen Spencer & Associates. We call ourselves the Ambience Architects because we try to help every organisation gain deeper insight into the visitor experience as it's actually experienced by the visitor. I know it sounds a crazy idea. Really to achieve better impact and engagement from visitors, and then ultimately better sustainability in all senses for the organisation.
For listeners, the Ambience Lounge here at M&H is absolutely rammed at the moment, isn't it?
I can't get in myself.
I know, it's amazing. So what are you hoping for this networking lounge?
Well, what we're aiming to do is create a space for quality conversations, for people to meet friends and contacts, old and new, to discover new technologies, new ideas, or just really to come and have a sounding board. So we're offering free one-to-one advice clinics.
Oh, really?
Across a whole range of aspects of the visitor journey, from core mission to revenue generation and storytelling. Because I think, one of the things we see most powerfully being exploited by the successful organisations is that kind of narrative thread that runs through the whole thing. What am I about? Why is that important? Why should you support me? How do I deliver that? And more of it in every interaction. So
you're having those sorts of conversations here with people on a one-to-one basis.
Yes. Then we also are hosting the structured networking event. So all of the sector support organisations that are here, they have scheduled networking events when really people can just come and meet their peers and swap experiences and again find new people to lean on and be part of an enriched network.
Absolutely. So we are only half a day in, not even quite half a day into a 2-day programme, so it's very early to say, but exciting conversations, things are going in the direction that you hoped for?
Yes, we know that the sector is really challenged at the moment. Really, the fact that we're in now such a crazy world of total constant disruption and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
But equally, we offer something that is reassuring, that is enriching, that is life-enhancing. We just need to find better ways to do that and reach audiences and reach new audiences and just keep them coming back. And the conversations that I've heard so far have been very much around that. So it's very exciting.
Excellent. One of the themes of this episode that we'll be talking to lots of people about is a little bit of crystal ball gazing.
Yes.
You're right, the world is a hugely, massively disrupted place at the moment, but what do you see the next 6 or 12 months looking like, and then what does it look like for the sector in maybe a 5-year time horizon?
Okay, well, you don't ask easy questions, do you? So I think there will be a bit of a kind of shaking down in what we understand to be the right uses of digital technology and AI. I think we see all the mistakes that were made with social media and what it's literally done to the world. And whilst there are always examples of, let's say, museums using social media very cleverly and intelligently, we know that's against the backdrop of a lot of negativity and harm. So why would we want to repeat that, for example, with generative AI?
Indeed.
So I heard a talk about 2 years ago at the VAT conference about using AI to help the visitor to do the stuff that is difficult for them to do. In other words, to help them build an itinerary that is right for them. And I think until everyone is doing that, then they should be very wary of stepping off the carpet to try and do other things with it. Meanwhile, what is an immersive experience? It is not just sitting in, with all due respect to those that do this, a, surround sound visual box. It is actually what it's always been, which is meeting real people in authentic spaces and places, using all the senses to tell stories. So I think we will need to see... Thank you very much. I've just been given a great coffee because that's the other thing we're offering in the networking
good
lounge.
Coffee.
It's good coffee. I'm not saying you can't get it anywhere else in the show, just saying it's good here. Yeah, I think just some realism and common sense creeping into what we really should be using these technologies for and not leaving our visitors behind. I mean, for example, a huge amount of the natural audience for the cultural sector, people might not want to hear it, but we all know it's true, is older people.
Indeed.
And they aren't necessarily wanting to have to become digital natives to consume culture. So we shouldn't just say, basically, unless you'll download our app, unless you'll do everything online, you're just going to be left behind. That's crazy. It doesn't make good business sense, and it's not right. So I just think some common sense and maybe some regulation that will happen around uses of AI that might help and also, around digital harms. And just getting back to some basics. I was talking to a very old colleague earlier today who had just come back from a family holiday to Disney World.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he said, you can't beat it. You cannot beat it. For that is immersion.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not sealed in a box, is it?
No. And it's really, it's a bit like Selfridges. I always talk about my favourite store is Selfridges. It still does what Harry Gordon Selfridge set out to do. He said, excite the mind and the hand will reach for the pocket. I always say, he didn't say excite the eye, he said excite the mind.
Yes.
And the way you do that is through all the senses.
Amazing.
And so, digital, I'm sure he'd be embracing, but he would be saying, what about the rest of it?
How do you add the human touch to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Big Pit last week as they
I'm
reopened.
very excited to see this. Yeah,
and it was such an amazing experience walking through that gift shop.
Yes.
They have so subtly brought the museum into the gift shop and blended the two really, really well.
Yes, and I think that raises the bar. And again, if you want to make more money as a museum, you need to be embracing that kind of approach, because if you just carry on doing what you've always done, your revenue will go down.
Yes.
And we all know your revenue needs to go up because other sources of income will be going down.
Sarah, welcome back to Skip
Thank
the
you very
Queue.
much.
The last time you were here, there was a much better looking presenter than I.
Yep.
You were in the Kelly era.
Yes, we were.
It's almost as if there was a demarcation line before Kelly and after Kelly. Why don't you just introduce yourself for me? Tell the listeners what it is that you do.
So I'm Sarah Bagg. I'm the founder of ReWork Consulting. The last time I spoke, it wasn't that long after our launch, I think, so like 2.5 years ago.
Right.
We've just had our 3rd birthday.
Wow.
Which is completely incredible. When we first launched ReWork, we were specifically for the visitor attractions industry and focused on ticketing.
Yep.
So obviously we are a tech ticketing consultancy business. In the last 3.5 years, we've grown and now have 5 verticals. So attractions are one of them.
And who else do you work with then?
So the arts, the leisure industry, so whether it be activity centres, cinemas, bowling centres, and then live entertainment, so it could be anything from sports, festivals, etc., and the arts like theatres or
So
galleries.
closely aligned to your attractions,
Very,
then
very
things that people go and do,
Yeah.
but different kinds of things.
You
And
could
maybe
loosely say they're like live entertainment.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a nice description. So this must be a mecca for you to have all of these people brought together telling amazing stories.
I think how I would sum up museum and heritage today is that I think we're kind of going through a period of like being transformed, almost like back.
Okay.
People are reconnecting with real experiences and with people.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that tech is invisible and they're just to support the experience. I think there's a lot of things that are going on at the moment around, a bit nostalgia and people dragging themselves back to the 90s. And there's a lot of conversations about people and customer service and experience. And although technology plays a huge part in that, I would still like to think that people come first and foremost.
Always.
Slightly weird from a technology consultant.
But nobody goes to a visitor attraction to be there on their own and interact with technology. That's not the point of being there.
Yeah.
Interesting talks that you've been to today?
I think one of my favourite was actually one of the first of the day, which was about sort of how do you enhance the visitor experience through either like music and your emotions and really tapping into how you feel through like all your different senses, which was one of Stephen's talks, which I really enjoyed.
That's really interesting.
I think if people like look at the visitor industry and across the board, that's why I'm so keen to stay like across 4 different sectors. We can learn so much pulling ideas from like hospitality and restaurants and bars.
Completely.
Even if you think about like your best, there's a new bar that's opened not very far from my home in Brighton. And the service is amazing, and the design of the space really caters for whether you're in there with 10 people or whether you're sat at the bar on your own. It doesn't exclude people depending on what age you are or why you've gone into the bar. And I think we can learn a lot in the visitor attractions industry because there's been a lot of talk about families today. I don't have children, and I think that we need to think more about actually that lots of other people go to visitor attractions.
Completely.
And they don't necessarily take children, and they might want to go on their own.
Yes.
But what are we doing to cater for all of those people? There's nothing.
How do you make them feel welcome? How do you make them
100%.
feel like they're a first class a guest, the same as everybody else? Yeah. So where do you see the sector going over the next few years based on what you've seen today?
I think there'll be a lot more diversification between sectors. There's definitely a trend where people have got their assets. Like if you're looking at things like safari parks and zoos, places that have already got accommodation, but maybe like stately houses where there used to be workers that were living in those cottages or whatever, that they're sweating their assets.
Yep.
I think it would be interesting to see where tech takes us with that, because there has been a tradition in the past that if your number one priority to sell is being like your hotel, then you would have like a PMS solution. But if it's the other way around, your number one priority is the attraction or the venue, and you happen to have some accommodation, then how is that connecting to your online journey? Because the last thing you want is like somebody having to do two separate transactions.
Oh, completely. Drives me crazy.
One thing I would also love to see is attractions thinking beyond their 10 till 6 opening hours.
Completely.
Because some days, like restaurants, I've seen it, maybe they now close on Mondays and Tuesdays so they can give their staff a day off, and they have different opening hours. Why are attractions still fixated in like keeping these standard opening hours? Because actually you might attract a completely different audience. There used to be a bit of a trend for like doing museum late. So I was speaking to a museum not very long ago about, do they do like morning tours, like behind the scenes, kind of before it even opens? And I think the museum particularly said to me like, oh, we're fine as we are.
I've never met a museum that feels fine where it is at the moment.
But I guess the one thing I would love to see, if I could sprinkle my fairy dust.
Come the revolution and you're in charge.
And it's not even like rocket science. It's more investment into training and staff, because the people that work in our industry are like the gold. It's not tech, it's not pretty set works, it's not like fancy display cases. Yes, the artifacts and stuff are amazing.
But the stories the people stack,
Give them empowerment and training and make the customer feel special.
Yes.
When you leave, like you've had that experience, you're only ever going to get that through the people that you interact with.
Completely.
Jeremy,
hello.
Welcome to Skip the Queue. We are being slightly distracted by a dinosaur walking behind us, as such is life at M&H show.
Yes, anything to do with museums and dinosaurs, always great crowd pleasers.
Exactly. So, is this your first time at M&H, or have you been before?
Oh, I've been before, but probably not for 10 years or more. It was. Yes, I remember the last time I came, the theatres were enclosed, so they were partitioned all the way around.
Right.
But because it's so popular now, that would not work. It's a long time ago. It shows how long I've been volunteering in museums,
Indeed,
though, doesn't it?
So, for our listeners, Jeremy, just introduce yourself and tell everyone about the role that you've got at Petersfield Museum.
Okay, so I'm Jeremy Mitchell. I'm a trustee at Petersfield Museum, now Petersfield Museum and Art Gallery. I'm actually now chair of trustees.
Paint a little picture for us of Petersfield Museum then. What could someone expect if they came to you, apart from, as I understand, a very good cup of coffee?
A very good cup of coffee, the best in Petersfield, and that's not bad when there are 32 competitors. You'll get a little bit of everything. You'll get the story of Petersfield, but you'll get so much more. We've got collections of costume going back to the mid-18th century. We've got work of a local artist, Flora Twort, one of those forgotten female artists from between the wars. She's a story that we will be exploring. We've got, in partnership with the Edward Thomas Fellowship, a big archive of books and other artefacts by and about Edward Thomas, who was a poet, writer, literary critic. He's one of the poets killed in the First World War. But he's not well known as a war poet because he was writing about the impact of war on life at home. So he's now more well known as a nature poet.
So you're telling the story not just of the place, you're telling the story of the people that have produced great art or had an impact on Petersfield.
Yes. And their networks and how they might relate to Petersfield in turn. We've got the costume collection I mentioned, going back to the mid-18th century, which came from Bedale School. They've all got stories to them.
Interesting.
This came from Bedale School, which is a private school on the edge of Petersfield. It was actually collected by their drama teacher between the 1950s and the 1970s.
Wow.
Because she believed in authenticity. So if she was putting on a 19th century production, she would want genuine 19th century clothes.
Let me tell you, my drama productions in a 1980s comprehensive did not include authentic 19th century costumes.
If we were doing something like that at school, their parents would have been, all right, go down to the jumble sale, buy some material, make something that looks something like it.
Yeah.
But no, she was, well, if you haven't got anything in your attic that's suitable, please send me some money, because there's a sale at Sotheby's in 3 months' time of costume from the period.
Excellent.
Oh, and we've got some lovely pieces in there. When we put on the Peggy Guggenheim exhibition, which is what we were talking about earlier today here, we were able to bring in costume from the 1930s, Chanel dress, other high quality, not necessarily worn by Peggy Guggenheim, but
authentic of the period.
But her son was at Bedale, so she could have been asked to donate something.
Okay.
Highly unlikely. But it was similar to items that she had been photographed in or would have been wearing.
So tell me about the presentation. How was that?
It went so quickly.
Oh, yes. You get in the zone, don't you?
You get in the zone. But it flowed, and Louise was great. Louise had done the bulk of the work. She prepared the presentation that visually told the story of the exhibition and its outcomes and impacts. And I filled in the boring but I call it the BBC, the boring but crucial. How we funded it, how we organised the project management around it, the planning, and getting buy-in from the rest of the trustees at the beginning, because it was potentially a big financial commitment if we hadn't been able to fund it.
Isn't it interesting? So coming to an event like this there's always so much to learn. It's always an enriching experience to come. But it's a great opportunity, isn't it, for a small museum and art gallery such as Petersfield. It feels a little bit like you're punching above your weight, doesn't it, to be invited onto this stage to talk about it. But really, you're telling this amazing story, and it's of interest to everybody that's here.
We want to share it. If we've been able to do it, then why can't they? Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't we all do it? And yes, you need the story. But if you dig deep enough, those stories are there.
Absolutely. One of the things that is a real common conversation here at M&H is looking forward, crystal ball gazing. There's challenges in the sector, isn't there? There's lots of challenges around funding, and I guess as a small museum, you must feel those choppy waters quite acutely.
Definitely. I mean, we're an independent museum, so we're not affected by spending cuts because we don't get any funding from that area. But the biggest challenge is from the funding perspective. Yes, we have a big income gap every year that we need to bridge. And now that so much more of the sector is losing what was its original core funding, they're all fishing in the same pond as us.
Okay.
And they've got a fundraising team, probably bigger than our entire museum team.
Yes.
Let alone the volunteer fundraiser that we've got. So yes, it is a challenge, and you are having to run faster just to stand still. The ability to put on an exhibition like Peggy Guggenheim shows that we are worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
And the Guggenheim was funded by Art Fund Western Loan Programme, and an Arts Council project grant. And it was a large Arts Council project grant.
So although everyone's fishing in the same pond as you're managing to stretch my analogy just a little bit too far. You are managing to get some grant funding and lift some tiddlers out of the pond.
Yes, but it was quite clear that with Peggy, it was a story that had to be told.
So we talked a little bit about challenging times, but one of the big opportunities at M&H is to be inspired, to think about where the opportunities are going forwards. You've had a day here today.
Yes.
What are you thinking as inspiration, as next big things for Petersfield Museum?
I'm finding that really difficult. Because we're a small site, AR, I think, has got to be a way forward. I missed the talk, but they're all being recorded.
Yes.
So I shall be picking that one up with interest. But AR is something. We've got police cells. Well, we've got a police cell.
Okay.
Now, wouldn't it be great to tell an augmented reality story of Victorian justice to kids while they're sat in a Victorian police cell on a hard wooden bench that is the original bench that the prisoners would have slept on?
I've done enough school visits to know there's enough kids that I could put in a jail just to keep them happy, or to at least keep them quiet whilst the rest of us enjoy our visit.
Yes.
I feel like I need to come to Petersfield and talk more about Peggy, because I think there might be an entire episode of Skip the Queue to talk just about putting on a big exhibition like that. So,
no, definitely. If you drop me an email, you can skip the queue and I'll take you round.
Oh, lovely. Rachel, welcome to Skip the Queue. You join me here at M&H show, and we've taken over someone's stand, haven't we?
I know. I love it.
It feels a bit weird, doesn't it?
I feel like we're squatting, but
I feel a little bit like the two Ronnies, because we're sat behind the desk. It's very strange.
Which one are you? Which one are you? No, anyway.
Just for listeners, introduce yourself for me. Tell listeners what it is that you do at BOP Consulting.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel Kuhn, and I'm an Associate Director at BOP, and we specialise in culture and the creative economy, and kind of working across everything that is to do with culture and creative economy globally. But I lead most of our strategy and planning projects, particularly in the UK and Ireland, generally working with arts, heritage, cultural organisations, from the very earliest big picture strategy through to real nitty-gritty sort of operational plans. And outside of BOP, I'm a trustee for Kids and Museums, where we love to hang, and also a new trustee with the Postal Museum.
Given what you do at BOP, this must be like the highlight of the year for you, to just soak up what everybody is doing.
I love it. I mean, it's so lovely just going around, chatting to everybody, listening in on the talks, and I think that spirit of generosity, like it just comes across, doesn't it? And it just reminds you why I love this sector, why I'm here. Everyone wants to, contribute, and it's that whole sort of spirit of, what do they say? When the tide rises, so do all the boats or all the ships, and I feel like that's the spirit here, and it's lovely.
It is such a happy place, and it's such a busy, vibrant space, isn't it? What have been the standout things for you that you've seen today?
I think probably on that spirit of generosity, Rosie Baker at the Founding Museum talking about the incredible work they've done with their events hires programs. Obviously, got to give a shout out to the Association of Cultural Enterprise. I've been doing a lot of hanging out at their stage today. So Gordon gave us the rundown of the benchmarking this morning. Some really good takeaways from that. And Rachel Mackay, I mean, obviously...
Who couldn't want to go and see...
You always want to see her. Really good fun, but lovely to hear. She's talking about her strategy, the visitor experience strategy. And do you know what? I spend so much time going into places looking at these sub-strategies, like visitor experience strategies, that just haven't been written in alignment with the overall strategy. So it was lovely to see that linking through, and obviously I'm from a visitor experience background, so hugely passionate about the way that visitor experience teams can make visitors feel the organisation's values, and that alignment was really impressive. So yeah, really lovely, and loads of great takeaways from all those talks.
I will just say for listeners, all of these talks have been recorded, so everyone's going to be able to download the materials. It take a couple of weeks before they're actually published, but one of the questions that I've asked everybody in these Vox Pops has been, let's do some crystal ball gazing. It stinks at the moment, doesn't it? The economy is fluctuating. There is so much going on. What do you see 6 to 12 month view look like? And then let's really push the boat out. Can we crystal ball gaze maybe in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, look,
I think the whole problem at the moment and what's causing that sort of nervousness is there's just a complete lack of surety about loads of things. In some ways, many organisations would have welcomed the extension for the MPO round, the current round, but for many, that's just pushed back the opportunity to get in on that round that little bit further away. It's caused that sort of nervousness with organisations who are having to ride on with the same funding that they asked for some years ago that just doesn't, match, and it's actually a real-time cut for them.
Absolutely.
So I think very hard to say. I don't know that there's much I can say. I feel like as everyone else, I think, about what the landscape looks like in the next 6 months. But I think that never has there been, a better time than for something like this, like the M&H show. This is about coming together and being generous and sharing that information. And I think reaching out to each other and making sure that we're sort of cross-pollinating there. There's so much good stuff going on. And we've always been really good at that. And I think sometimes when we're feeling a bit down, it feels like, I just don't want to go to something like this and meet others and, get into a bit of a misery cycle. But actually, it's so uplifting to be at something like this. And I think, what we've seen here is at the show today, I think, is organisations being really generous with their experience and their expertise, suppliers and consultants and supporters of the sector being really generous with their time and their expertise, and actually just shows, just spending a bit of time with each other, asking things of each other. We've just got loads of stuff to share and we're all really up for it. And I think that generosity is so critical. And I mean, obviously, I'm going to plug.
Oh,
I'm going to plug it. So, if you are a supplier, if you are a commercial business working in this sector, it might be tough times for you, but it's certainly nowhere near as hard as it is for the arts and cultural and heritage organisations in the sector. Reach out to them and see how you can support them and help them. I mean, you and I have both been on a bit of a drive recently to try and drum up some sponsorship and corporate support for kids in museums who, an Arts Council MPO who we're incredibly proud to represent. And, do reach out to us if you've been thinking, I just want to sponsor something and I'd love to sponsor us.
Exactly. I mean, there's loads of opportunities. When you take kids in museums as an example, loads of opportunities for, and this is what Arts Council wants us to do. They want us to be more independent, to generate more of our own funding. And we've got a great brand. We do some amazing work. And there's lots of opportunities for those commercial organisations who align with our values to help to support us.
Yeah. So I think you asked me there about what's in the next year. So the next year, 6 months, I don't know is the answer. I think it's just a difficult time. So my advice is simply get out there, connect, learn from each other, energise each other, bring each other up. Let's not get into that sort of doom cycle that's very easy. Next 5 years, do you know what? I've had some really interesting meetings and conversations over the last, one particularly interesting one today, some other ones about some funds that might be opening up, which I think is really exciting. We've seen this really big challenge with funding, slowing, funding going in much larger amounts to a smaller number of large organisations, and that causes real problems. But I think there might be a small turnaround on that. I'm not promising the earth. I think it's still tough times, but that was really exciting to hear about. I'm also seeing here at the show today, I've been speaking to a lot of suppliers whose their models seem to be shifting a lot. So a lot more opportunities here where it requires no investment from the attraction, and a lot more sort of interesting and different types of profit share models, which I think is really interesting. So I think the other thing I'd say is if you're an attraction, don't discount partnering some of these organisations, because actually, go and talk to them. Don't just count them out because you think you haven't got anything to invest, because many of them are visiting new models. And the couple that I've spoken to who aren't, learn from your competitors and start doing some different models. And I think that's been really interesting to hear some very different models here for some of the products, which is really exciting.
It is really hard. Sitting on the other side of the fence as a supplier, we need cash flow as well. We've got to pay bills and all of those sorts of things. But you're right, there are interesting ways in which we all want to have a conversation. As you say, don't sit back afraid to engage in the conversation because you've got nothing to invest. You've got an important brand, you've got an audience. Those are valuable assets that a supplier like us would want to partner with you to help you to bring a project to life. And that might be on a rev share model, it might be on a service model. There's lots of different ways you can slice it and dice it.
And going back on a closing note, I suppose, going back to that generosity thing, don't think because you haven't got any money to commission, a supplier to the sector or a commercial company, that you can't reach out to them. We are in this because we really want to support these organisations. This is our passion. Many of us are from the sector.
Yep.
I will always connect somebody or introduce somebody or find a way to get a little bit of pro bono happening. Or, many of my colleagues are on advisory committees, we're board members. And I think that's the same for so many of the companies that are working with the sector. Reach out and ask for freebie. Don't ask, don't get.
Yeah, exactly. Rachel, it is delightful to talk to you as always. Thank you for joining us on Skip the Queue, and I am sure we'll make this into a full episode one day soon. I do say that to everybody though. So,
Thanks so much.
Thank
Lovely
you,
to
mate.
speak to you.
Andy,
Paul,
we've just walked out of the M&H show for another year. What are your thoughts?
first I'm exhausted. Absolutely
That's
exhausted.
your own fault, isn't it?
I'm not sure that I can talk anymore because I've spent 48 hours having some of the most interesting conversations I've had all year.
No offence taken.
You were part of some of those conversations, obviously, Paul.
I was bowled over again by just the sheer number of people that were there and all those lovely conversations, and everybody was just buzzing for the whole 2 days.
The energy was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I think I worked out that it's something like the 15th show, M&H show that I've been to. And I don't know whether it's just recency because it's sitting in the far front of my mind at the moment, but it seems like this was the busiest one there's ever been.
Yeah, I can believe it. The one thing that didn't change, they're still working on Olympia.
I think that just goes on forever. It's like the Fourth Bridge.
Talks that stood out to you?
I really enjoyed interpretation one led by the guy from the sign language education company, whose name I can't remember right now.
Yeah, no, that was an amazing talk. Listeners, we will be getting him on for a full interview. I'm going to solve the problem of how do I make a inherently audio podcast into something that's accessible for deaf people by translating the podcast medium into some sort of BSL approach. So
Fantastic.
That was the conversation that we had yesterday after the talk.
I know, I really look forward to that. Then, of course, there was the George and Elise from Complete Work.
I know, they were amazing, weren't they? You couldn't tell at all that they were actors, could you?
Never.
Do you know, it was really strange when George... So there was a point in that talk that George gave where we all had a collective breathing exercise, and it was so brilliantly done, and we were all just captivated. There must have been, I reckon there was 100 people at the theatre at that point.
Absolutely.
Because it was standing room only at the back, and we were all just captivated by George just doing his click. Very, very clever.
But massively useful. I've seen the same thing from George before, and I still use it to this day before going on to make a presentation myself.
Yeah. Just
grounding yourself, centering yourself. Well, it's fantastic thing.
Yeah. But the whole thing that they were talking about of how do we create opportunities to have meaningful conversations with guests when they arrive or throughout their entire experience at an attraction, so that we don't just talk about the weather like we're typical English people.
That's great, isn't it? Go and tell a Brit not to talk about the weather.
But training your
Makes
staff...
absolute sense.
Training your staff to have the skills and the confidence to not talk about the weather, I thought that was really interesting.
It's an eye-opener, isn't it?
It really
something
is.
really simple, but it could be groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Then what was your view on all of the exhibitors? What did you take away from all the stands and everybody?
Well, I
saw with
loved
their
having my
products?
conversation yesterday with Alan Turing. There was an AI model of Alan Turing that you could interact with and ask questions, and it was really interesting. There was a slight latency, so it didn't feel quite yet like a natural conversation, because I would say something and then there was a pause as Alan was thinking about it. But the things that he answered were absolutely spot on the questions that I asked. I thought that was quite interesting. Other exhibitors. There was a lovely point yesterday where I was admiring. There was a stand doing custom designed socks, and I was admiring a design of a Jane Austen sock, and there was just somebody stood next to me, and I just said, "Oh, Jane Austen socks," very on trend for the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen. All of the museums in Hampshire will be buying those up. And funny you should say that. I'm the chief executive of Chawton Park House, which is one of the museums in the last place that Jane Austen lived. So
very interesting.
It was a very small world moment at that point.
It's almost an oxymoron to talk about Jane Austen socks. I don't imagine her having ever worn anything with nylon or lycra in it.
Very true. I hadn't tweaked that.
There was a lot of AI there, wasn't there? AI this, AI that.
And there were some really good examples of where it is being used in real life. Yeah. So there was some examples where there's AI being used to help with visitor counts around your attraction, to help you to optimise where you need to put people. I thought that Neil at Semantic talking about what he called answer engine optimization, that was interesting. So. There were some brilliant questions. There was one question from an audience member asking, are there any tools available for you to figure out how well your organisation is doing at being the source of truth for AI tools?
Yeah. So almost like your Google search engine ranking, but
exactly
AI.
But for ChatGPT.
And have you found one yet?
No, not yet. There's also quite a lot of people talking about ideas that have yet to find a home.
Yes. What a very beautiful way of putting it.
The people that have that are presenting a topic that has yet to get a real-life case study associated with it. So the rubber hasn't yet hit the road, I don't think, on that.
No, I think that's true for an awful lot of AI, isn't it? Not just in our sector.
No.
It's very interesting to see where that's all going to go, and what are we going to think when we look back on this in 2 or 3 years' time and go, was it just another chocolate teapot or a problem looking for a solution, or was it the revolution we all anticipate?
And I think it will make fundamental change. I think it's changing rapidly. But we need more real case studies of how you can do something interesting that is beyond just using ChatGPT to write your marketing copy for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about putting the guest at the front of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's not obsess about the technology. Let's look at what the technology is going to enable us to do. And back to the first part of this conversation, looking at accessibility, then are there tools within AI that are going to help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was an interesting talk by Vox, the people that provide all of the radio boxes for everybody to wear at M&H that provides you with the voiceover of all of the speakers, but they use this technology across all manner of different attractions, and they were talking about using AI to do real-time translation of tours. So you could...
very interesting.
Yeah. So you could have an English speaker wandering around doing your tour, and it could real-time translate up to 4 languages.
BSL not being one of those languages.
Well, no, they were talking about real-time in-app being able to see subtitles. Now, I don't know whether they went on to say you could do BSL, and we know from the other presentation that not everybody that is deaf is able to read subtitles as fast as they can consume sign language. So it's important to have BSL, but there were some parts of that Vox product that did address deaf people. It wasn't just multilingual content.
So AI people, if you're listening, you can take the idea of translating it to BSL in real time and call it your own.
Yeah, we very much enjoyed hosting our theatre, didn't we? That was a lot of fun. And Anna, if you are listening, and I hope you are, because lots of people have said very nice things in this episode about M&H, Andy and I would love to come back next year.
Absolutely.
And host a theatre for you. Any other thoughts?
Just really looking forward to the rest of the week off.
Yeah.
It's a sign of a good show when you walk away with all of that positive feeling and that positive exhaustion. And you probably need a week to reflect on all of the conversations that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is AIM Conference at Mary Rose.
In June. Can't wait.
Very much looking forward to that. Thank you ever so much for listening. We will join you again in a few weeks. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others to find us. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them to increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcripts from this episode and more over on our website, skipthequeue.fm.